Good to go. You good there, Holly? Perfect. All right, we'll go ahead and call this Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order this Wednesday, July 26, 2023, at the hour of 7 p.m. here at City Council Chambers. First item on our agenda here is our Pledge of Allegiance. If you all please rise and repeat with me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As I hit my vice chair with my chair here.
I think sounds like the YouTube channel is not up and running. Is that okay?
Okay, we'll go ahead and go on to number 2 on our agenda. Here's our roll call. Commissioner Hammer?
Here.
Commissioner Proctor?
Here.
Commissioner Sloan?
Here.
Commissioner Robinson? Here. Commissioner Jensen?
Here.
Commissioner Newell?
Here.
And we'll go ahead and recognize Commissioner Dunn. Please excuse Commissioners Gochis and Councilmember Hanson. We've got Councilmember Manzione joining us tonight. And staff, we've got Mr. Stewart, Mr. Baker, Mr. Hanson, and Ollie helping us out. So thank you guys for all attending.
And Catherine.
And Catherine, of course, she's always here. We never give you enough kudos. We love you. Thank you for all your hard work. All right, number 3 on our agenda is a public hearing and recommendation on a zoning map amendment request by Cindy McInnes to reassign the zoning for approximately 0.39 acres located at 105 East, 1000 North from the existing zoning designation of RR1 residential zone to R17 residential zone. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Commission. Part of this I'll read from the staff report that Andrew Agard prepared. Obviously, I'm not usually the one presenting this to you, you know that, but I've reviewed this with Andrew. He's done a great job with the staff report. Some of it I'll read and some of it I'll summarize because you have the staff report too, so I don't want to read the whole thing. But I will just read this background bit. This application is a request for approval of a zoning map amendment for approximately 0.39 acres located at 105 East and 2000 North. The property is currently zoned RR1 rural residential. The applicant is requesting that a zoning map amendment be approved to allow a 0.39 acre lot to be subdivided from the larger 5.57 acre parcel that an existing home is currently located upon. So really the reason for this, and I guess I'll go into the next slide here, which shows aerial view of that map. We can also see that it's rural residential here and the larger acreage in the orange. Adjacent to it, we have light industrial. We have general commercial on the other sides. And if we get into the land use map, it is regional commercial in the land use map all around that property. So the applicant wishes to subdivide the 0.39 acre parcel from the larger parcel to maintain home ownership on the lot and enable sale and possible development of the larger 5 acre parcel. Part of this also is that in the rural residential RR1 zoning, that particular zone doesn't accomplish what the applicant wishes to do with the home, right? Maintain the home, right, as a living space and a residence, because the lot size on 0.39 acres is smaller than permitted in the RR1 zone. So, based on the land use map and what would qualify for the purposes she wishes for her home, we could do the R17, R18, or R110 residential zoning districts. All 3 of those districts would be appropriate and accomplish the objectives of the applicant. So as we discussed with the applicant staff, and when I say we, that's Andrew, right? It's Andrew and Paul primarily, so, just to clarify that, we isn't necessarily me. But, we picked R17 because there wasn't an expressed preference for any of those. All three of them really accomplished the purpose. If there is a preference, any of those three zones could do just well and be fine by the applicant too. So R17 was selected somewhat arbitrarily based on that. Additionally, you'll see that 100 East is here. One thing that's noted in the staff report is that at some point there could be a future signal there, right? We're planning for a future signal at that intersection. That was discussed with the applicant, and she's aware that that's a plan for the future. And we can address those, logistics as that approaches in the future. And it's not a concern for the applicant, and it's just something she's aware of. So just wanted to let you know that was also discussed. And I think that's, everything else should be in the staff report. Are there questions and things to discuss?
All right, we'll bring this back to the commission for any questions, comments, concerns for staff. Nobody has any for you right now. This one does require a public hearing. I see the applicant is here tonight. We'll go ahead and hold you off and give you some time after the public hearing, and you can address this on your own. But I'll go ahead and open the public hearing for this particular item. If you would please approach the podium, write your name for the record, and state your name for the audio record as well, please. Seeing no one approach, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this particular item and invite the applicant up if she'd like to address the commission. Nothing. Brings us back to the commission for any other further questions, comments, concerns. All right, I will entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Chair, I move we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the McInnes property zoning map amendment on 0.39 acres of property from the RR1 to the R17, based on the findings listed in the staff report dated 14 July 2023.
I've got a first from Commissioner Robinson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Jensen.
Can I ask a quick question? And
Yes,
maybe
please.
In a couple of places in the agenda item, the address is referred to as 2000 North, not 1000 North. Do we need to make sure that's clear, or is this good enough?
That would be a good question for Mr. Baker over there, or Mr. Hanson.
I think you just
Thank you.
Clarified it just right in the minutes, right? Good. As long as that clarification is made in our minutes, it'll suffice. Okay. I've got a positive recommendation from Commissioner Robinson and a second from Commissioner Jensen. Commissioner Hammer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen?
Aye.
And Commissioner Newell?
Aye.
I am Chairman Hamilton. I also vote aye. That one passes 7-0. Moves us on to number 4 on our agenda here. A public hearing and a decision on a conditional use permit request by Irva Development to authorize the use of accessory drive-through facility for 2.283 acres of property located at 245 North Main Street in the GC General Commercial Zoning District. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Commissioner. This one thing that's noted in the staff report is that this isn't a site plan design review. It's so there are some site plans in this, right? But we're just specifically looking for the uses of the accessory drive-through. That's noted in the staff report, so I thought I'd reiterate that. As we look at this, this is just it's the commercial property just north of us here by Key Bank and the commercial strip that's there. We can see that it's zoned general commercial. There's some residential to the west, but it's in our Main Street general commercial corridor here. Here is a site plan that shows on the north side a new building, which would be constructed on what's now really just, I think, a landscaped, rock gravel area for part of it and parking another part of it. And in the middle of that site plan, there is another new constructed building, which would have a drive-through as well. That's too far, though, so it's just that slide, sorry. There was also, I will note, there was another slide that we, as I discussed with staff today, we decided to take out of this as we talked about it because it showed an alternate scenario for a drive-through that would have put the drive-through window on the passenger side of a car, which was, we thought, a little bit of a predicament, right? If you're in the car, you might not be able to reach unless you have very long arms or have a requirement that there's a passenger. It might not quite.
Or a Japanese or a British car.
Yeah, so we did take that slide out, and there are some notes in the staff report that refer to that scenario. But we might want to even consider that, as noted in the staff report. I'll read this section that Andrew wrote. It is well within the purview and authority of the Planning Commission to table this item with the request that a traffic study be performed related to the proposed improvements and drive-through aisle locations, if this is necessary to help the Planning Commission make a more informed decision or determine conditions to mitigate potential impacts. So, and forgive me, I'm just looking through these notes, and I do want to note some things in the staff report. That there is space in that northern drive-through for about 7 cars to queue. There's space for about 7 cars in the southern or central new development for cars to queue as well. The one concern that there is the concern from the staff that queuing could come into that drive aisle, which could impact the fire access there. If a fire truck needed to get in there and there was queuing that blocked that, it's important that to the fire department that is open and accessible, as that is one of the fire accesses. Also, if queuing goes out into that, it's possible that it could queue into SR 36 Main Street, which would be a concern as well if it queued further than those 7 cars shown. Those are two of the two concerns from the staff report to note. And there's also some recommendations in the staff report, like I said, that may or may not be applicable if it's, I don't think the directions of that were realized at the time. So let me make sure there's nothing else here. Okay. Also in the staff report, it is noted that landscaping and the Tooele City encourages drive-through vehicle stacking lanes to be obscured from view on public streets in order to promote a positive aesthetic from architectural and landscaping viewpoints. An example of this is if you go by McDonald's at Macy's, a lot of times you could just see the cars, right? It'd be maybe ideal if there were landscaped berms and boulders or some other landscaping that's a little more decorative and just better to look at from the street. That's the other thing noted in the staff report, that we do recommend or suggest a combination of these elements just to promote the view and the aesthetics from Main Street as well. So that is, I think, a summary of everything that's in the staff report. If I miss anything, Roger or Paul, let me know. Looks like Paul has something. I missed something. So Paul, come and help me out here. Thank
It's
you.
okay, Jared, you're doing a good job. Appreciate it.
Permission,
Mr. Hanson,
Chair.
please.
Let me give you some information on the traffic study. It is something that we required from the developer early on in the development. We hadn't seen any documentation yet, and I spoke with our traffic engineer, Joe Perrin. He's the owner of A-Trans Engineering. Apparently, he gave them a study yesterday. We don't have a copy of it. He did indicate that he thought there would need to be some modifications to the plan. So I guess what I'm proposing to you as a commission is a couple of options. You could either table it, as has been suggested in Andrew's email, if you still have questions, or where this is really just a conditional use on the drive-through feature, not a site layout, you could allow staff to work with the developer in conjunction with the traffic study that's done and find a way that makes it safe and accessible. You have a couple of options, but they are working on a traffic study, and the points that Mr. Stewart raised about not impeding access off to Main Street or fire or other are all concerns that we shared and will look to mitigate before we approve anything final.
That's good information. Thank you. Bring this back to the commission for questions or comments.
Mr. Chairman, I'm kind of leaning the table way at this point. I'm concerned about just approving the CUP and understanding that we've got very limited authority to not approve it. But short of seeing the traffic study, short of seeing, frankly, a site plan that would give me some comfort over that north entrance, I'm going to struggle with this one. I'm in and out of that every grandma day. I got to go to Little Caesars. But I can't really see a layout that for me would mitigate the potential traffic issues in and out of there. So unless somebody's smarter than me, which granted there are plenty of those people, I would be much more supportive of waiting a couple of weeks and taking a look at that and having staff take a look at that before we just issue a permit and then dump the whole responsibility on staff.
Good point, yes. Anybody else? Same concerns? Mr. Baker?
In addition to that, in order to impose a mitigating condition, you have to first make a finding of adverse impacts. And what better way to have a finding of adverse traffic circulation impacts than to have a professional traffic study examine not only the impacts but how to mitigate them. So I think it fits very well with the conditional use process, and I think tabling it would be an appropriate approach.
And would it be okay to table that before the public hearing and then take the public hearing on the next meeting?
Public hearings are something I'm a little more sensitive about.
That's what I was concerned
because
about, too.
we've invited the public and we don't want to, assuming they came, we don't want to cancel it and have them disappointed. So I suggest having the public hearing if you want to continue it so that you can
We can open it again at the next one as well and
just leave it open, yeah.
leave it open as well, too. Okay, yep. Okay, that sounds good. Any other more questions or comments from the commission? Yes, Mr. Stewart.
We do have the applicant here if you have any questions or if there's, I don't know if he has comments he wants to make or not, but I just wanted to make sure you knew the applicant's here too.
Perfect. All right. With all that having been said, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing now. We'll go ahead and hold off on the applicant, and we'll give you a few more minutes on your own at the end of the public hearing. If I close it or if I just decide to open it up again in the next one, I'd probably do it that way. It'd be easier, and I'll close it tonight and then open it up next one.
If you do it that way, you'll have to notice it again, but I think you'd want to notice it again anyway so people know that they could come.
Yep, perfect, okay. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. If you want to speak to this item on our agenda, then go ahead and approach the podium. Write your name and state your name for the audible record.
It's been a month, so I was just in the neighborhood, thought I'd stop. My name's Kalani Mascherino. I also love the Little Caesars, but it's so busy on 36, the complex to the north, coming out of, there's still a dance studio back there, I believe, and all the other businesses. And then when you get into this parking lot, there's also drop zone, and which is crazy when they're having party nights and things like birthday parties. And then I also love the taco truck that's already there, but it's a busy parking lot with Anytime Fitness and Rockstar Pets and Key Bank, and it just seems like We already have so many things coming in and out, and I see the problem with the north entrance coming out of the south side of gyms. Like, that is a really tight, like, being able to get out and on 36, and if it does get, back up, I don't know, just a concern. Because there's so much distracted driving, and our main street is busier and busier every day. Thank you.
Don't you have a stamp?
It's that one with the pen.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm Kelly Anderson, and my concern is obviously the traffic study, and I appreciate the fact that you want to table it, and I really am for that. Anytime we start talking about development, and I'm all for development and growth, it's just the infrastructure and having those things in place before the growth takes place. So I appreciate the fact that you're going to, I assume you're going to recommend the tabling. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, yeah, if you'll please sign the paper there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on this particular item, understanding that we'll have to renotice and have another public hearing at the next meeting, which is understanding if we decide to table this tonight. But we'll go ahead and have the applicant come up. Please state your name and write your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Elliot Abel. I'm with Urban Development, and I've been aiding in planning this project. And I just wanted to express that, yes, we have ordered a traffic study. We're working closely with Joe Perrin. And in doing so, he let us know that there likely would be circulation issues going on to Main Street with this current design. And so we've already been in the process of shifting which side that drive-through is on and adjusting the circulation. And we're confident that we have a viable solution that takes advantage of more of the access points into this plaza. So yeah, we're working to get that issue resolved. And that's all I was going to mention if Joe Perrin wasn't brought up prior.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you so
Well,
much
if you
for your
wouldn't
time.
mind hanging out for a second, if we got any questions from the commission for the applicant?
I have a question, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
Commissioner Jensen.
So I was looking on the internet, just doing some sleuthing about some other stuff, and I ran across the ad that you guys have on KSL in the classifieds and other properties for lease opportunities for this. And I know this isn't a site plan. We're not reviewing the site plan, but it showed 2 drive-throughs on that building that's directly on Main Street.
Yes.
So is that what you're maybe gonna plan, or, because I think that definitely pertains to the drive-through, where there'd be a drive-through on both sides of that smaller building?
This smaller building, we actually originally had planned as a double-sided drive-through. As part of the planning review and working with the planners, they brought up some concerns with that design, and we have since reduced the design to just being a single
Just
lane.
single lane on each building? So 2 drive-ups, one for one building and then the other for the other building?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Any other questions from the commission? All right, thank you, Mr. Dable. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring this back to the commission for further action.
I make a motion that we table it till we have the traffic study in our hands to look at it.
Okay, I've got a motion to table this until the traffic study is brought back and reviewed by staff and the commission, I'm assuming. Okay.
Second.
And I got that motion from Commissioner Proctor, and I got a second from Commissioner Sloan. Any other discussion before we move forward? All right. Commissioner Hammer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Newell?
Aye.
And I am Chairman Hamilton. I also vote aye. This one is tabled until the traffic study is reviewed by staff and the commission as well. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Puts us on number 5 on our agenda here is a decision on a design review request by Reeve and Associates to consider the use of asphalt millings gravel as finished paving material for designated parking areas associated with the new industrial business proposed to be located at 600 North Twilla Boulevard on the TCBP Twilla City Business Park zoning district on approximately 24.9 acres. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Commissioner. So this, again, is not a site plan review, but we will see some site plan concepts here as we talk about it. This is the 25-acre parcel that Leitner Poma is the parent company of SkyTrack, and they will they purchased this property from the RDA and plan to build a light manufacturing facility on here. So this is the site essentially, and that there's the building shown on that. You can see that the building is to the north of that parcel. Yeah, so we can see this is in our new zoning district, the Tooele Business Park zoning district. It's a light industrial type of use, which fits well within this zoning district. As we look at the site plan, we see on here the overall site plan, just with the building towards the north and east. And on this other next slide, we show the topic of our discussion today and the design review is that there are, it's proposed that asphalt millings be used rather than just your typical asphalt or concrete for these particular parking lots shown in red. It does not encompass there's still a regular asphalt fire drive through there. We thought that might come up as we talked internally with staff too. Asphalt millings, as noted in the staff report, are essentially recycled asphalt. It's taken from another area and ground up and reused here. Leitner Poma's plan would be to then roll over this to compact it and then let the heat kind of seal it, right? As noted in the staff report, there are some concerns about this. Just to the west is one of our municipal water wells, right? It's important for ground source protection and that we protect the water quality in this area, that we don't have percolation of oils and liquids that could contaminate groundwater into the area. We want to make sure that doesn't impact our water quality, right? So that's the big concern noted in the staff report. We did have discussions with Leitner Poma prior to this. We brought it up and asked them to provide some detail, and they did provide a page from a document that they're going to submit, I think, as part of their building permit. And this was included in this kind of a diagram of what asphalt millings would look like. The sections of those would be, 6 inches compacted to geotechnical requirements, as it says here. We haven't seen the geotechnical report that is noted in this slide. And so we would ask them to provide that, and we have asked that they will provide that for staff review at some point. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. But that would be staff's recommendation, is to have Leitner Poma and SkyTrack provide the geotechnical design from an engineer and the details of that for review and acceptance as well. And I think that's all my notes. Paul and Roger, am I missing anything there? Okay.
Well, Jared, I think what I heard you imply is that this one would also be appropriate to table until we get those specs and the manufacturer recommendation. Otherwise, we don't know what we're approving. Is that what you're suggesting?
That would be an option, and I think, similar to what we just went through with the last application, is it could be tabled until we have seen that geotechnical report. As if that comes through with the building permit as well, the option that Paul described for the last would apply here as well, that you could approve it conditionally upon staff reviewing and accepting this, but I don't want to speak for Paul either, so.
You're doing fine. This one's a little different than the last one in that we do have experience with asphalt milled being a very acceptable surface. As Jared indicated, the purpose of bringing this to the Planning Commission and the reason it was in the code was because of our concern for contaminants getting into the groundwater. If the asphalt millings are of a sufficiently small size, if they're placed in an appropriate thickness to bear the weight of the equipment that will be on it, it would be an acceptable surface. So my recommendation would be to say that as city engineer, I'm comfortable with this process, provided that they back it up with specifications that we can then hold them to in the placement. The alternate to that being, if we don't get the information, they would put down asphalt in these areas, and you may make that a condition. That way you're protected and you know what you're getting, we know what we're getting, but still give them the option to follow up with this information. It's a little different than the traffic study. It's not quite the life, health, safety issues that you were addressing there. So again, it's your discretion and your decision, but I've seen this product used. We've used it in the city. It can be done right. It just needs to be no bigger than a certain size rock, or you don't get compaction. You don't get sealing, and they can do that, but we need them to just designate that and specify that on the plans. And we're still reviewing their plans for final issuance anyway, so we've got some time.
Okay, perfect. Let's bring this back to the commission for questions for staff.
I have a question.
Don't leave.
Yeah, don't leave. Commissioner Jensen.
Why do they want to do this product?
I don't know.
I think, well, a large part of it is cost, right? To use recycled asphalt is a cost savings for Leitner Poma. They are quite conscious environmentally too. I think, they have plans to also put a wind turbine and generate a lot of their own electricity on the site, which is, not something, I think that just speaks to them trying to use recycled material as much as possible, and a cost savings, I think, is the big one. That maybe is the driving factor.
Commissioner Newell?
That just, if it's about that, then I would expect a larger portion to be designated for that use.
Yeah, and it might be that some of it we have required to not be millings because of fire
access.
drive access, right? I see Paul nodding, so I think I've spoken correctly there. So that might be part of it.
From what I can tell, from the measurements when I was looking at it earlier, we have a 30-foot all the way around the building, and this isn't set too far off of the building where they want it on that back side, which is probably 35 feet maybe, which is as close as we'd get an apparatus to a building anyhow, so.
Correct, because of the collapse zone, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I met with the fire department, with Chief McCoy and with the fire marshal, Nick Wall, you do have 30 foot all the way through your fire lane on the parking stalls to the right-hand side of the image as I look at it, and as you look at it, across the back, across the front. On the west side, it's just slightly less than 30 feet, but Chief McCoy said that he was comfortable with that because the code has us provide a minimum of 2 sides. He's got 3 with the fire access. And if they had to approach that side, he felt comfortable that this milled asphalt would be sufficient for that minimal amount of use and traffic that would be on it. In terms of why did they not do more or why did they not do less, it all depends on the availability of millings. For it to be cost effective, there has to be an asphalt road project that is taking part of the asphalt off and have it be close enough that they can truck it affordably. So I presume they have some information that is an option for them in terms of cost. but it all comes down to availability. It would not surprise me if they don't change their mind and do something else anyway, but it is an option that they're allowed under the code. It's an option that I don't think is a significant risk to the city. It's not in the principal parking lot, it's more in the overflow parking and things, but again, it's for your decision. Before I walk away a second time, am I ignoring anybody?
I've got a couple.
There might be some more.
Except for the city attorney, yes. And you don't ignore him.
Oh, I get ignored a lot, but that's okay. So Paul, as I understand it, an alternative to tabling it would be to approve it conditioned upon them meeting a certain specification. I'm just not clear what that spec is. Is it the spec that they provide?
Yes. What they have done is they have represented to the city that they have an updated geotechnical report that addresses the use of these milled tailings. We just don't have a copy of that updated report in our file. The report we do have is for standard asphalt in the different driving conditions. So it's based on that representation that they already have the report done. It's in their possession, and we just need them to tell us what is that maximum particle size, verify the 6-inch, and show us that it meets the loading that will be placed upon it, and that will be sufficient in my mind for this type of product.
We don't have reports from previous projects that have used this surface before?
We do, but every project's different.
Just because of what's going to be on
Just
there?
because of soils. Yeah, it depends upon what the subbase is. It depends upon the apparatus that will be on top of it.
So their report is specific to this project in this location?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, I've worked with it enough to feel that they can meet a specification that will work for overflow parking like this. But I've also seen some riprap where it's ripped out and it comes out in large chunks, and that never places well. It's very inconsistent. There's no uniformity to it. I just want something saying this is a standard that meets the requirement.
So you're suggesting their vote be to approve it conditioned upon the recommendations of the geotechnical report as to those issues of
Correct.
granularity and thickness, density, oil, whatever?
Correct. With a secondary option that if they don't provide it, then they just pave it per the city standards without using a roto-mill. Give them two options. I have no objection to doing that.
Okay, makes sense. Commissioner Sloan?
A couple things. One, you say the city's used it before. Have we used it in proximity to water previously?
We haven't, but I think it would be okay. I don't think it would cause us any concerns, at least it wouldn't, if it's placed right.
And my second question is actually kind of similar, but less to do with seepage and more to do with coming up. Will the geotech report talk about that at all? I don't know what's going to be operating on it. You say overflow parking. I don't know if that means we're parking semis on it or what. What happens if, again, if your specs, which are designed to keep it together so that we don't have stuff going down, will that also cover anything coming up? Last thing we want to do in this valley is have more gravel laying on the road.
Right. I wouldn't anticipate that being a problem. I have an example that's not exactly like this one, but several years ago, the Public Works Department had the opportunity to get a lot of this roto-milled asphalt and to use it to access the roads to some of our well houses and our water tanks. You're familiar with the water tank that's clear up on the hill?
Sure.
Well, they hauled several loads of this material up on the site without compaction and just stockpiled. It took jackhammers and track hose to get rid of the piles of material. It does have a tendency with heat to self-consolidate, self-adhere. It works very well. Now, that being said, asphalt is asphalt. If you overload it, it can crack. It can heave, it can do all kinds of things. We see that on any paved road. In this case, again, because it's not a principal driving surface, I don't think that would be a significant issue. If it is and they become tracking onto the road, then we would address that separately.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Great questions.
Yes,
Great
good questions. Any more questions from commission? Surprised you don't have more. All right. If that's no more questions and concerns from the commission, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on item number 5 on our agenda.
Chairman, I move that we table this item until such time as the geotechnical report is made available and passes the staff's review.
So you want to hear this back at the planning commission
Yes.
level? Okay. So I've got a motion to table this particular item until the geotechnical survey is submitted to staff and reviewed and bring it back to the commission for further review. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
A second from Commissioner Proctor. Will that motion suffice this agenda item, Mr. Baker? Perfect, thank you, sir. Just covering my bases too. Commissioner Hammer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Nay.
Commissioner Jensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Newell?
Aye.
I am Chairman Hamilton. I also vote aye. That one passes 6-1. We'll go ahead and table this one until we get the geotech back to staff, and we'll bring it back to the commission. All right, brings us to number 6 on our agenda tonight is our city council reports.
Hello, everyone. I
Hello.
don't actually have anything for you.
Well, that's a good thing,
Our
right?
meeting was super short, but next week, our meeting looks to be quite the fun, loaded up meeting, so there will be more next time, but do you have any questions for me?
What's on the next agenda?
It's called a Truth in Taxation
That's what I
hearing.
thought.
And a whole bunch of other things.
So just truth and taxation and everything else is just fluff?
No, everything else is not. There's a lot of, our agenda is very loaded next week, so.
Happens, right? Perfect. All right, those listening on YouTube there, truth and taxation is that next Wednesday, right?
It is.
A week from tonight, so
7.
get educated, get in here, learn. Perfect. Any questions for council?
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Puts us number 7 on our agenda. Well, yeah, we don't have any minutes to review, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned, thank you. Is that you, Jensen? Thank you.
Chairman, I'll just indicate that we received a comment tonight on the drive-through issue that you can address the next time you address this, but just want to make you aware of that.